Hey there, everybody on YouTube land. It's LordBear90. For the final time tonight, I am going to review the Fall of Cybertron Deluxe Class Thundercracker. He is the first of the Seeker mold from the Fall of Cybertron game that I've managed to pick up. This guy comes with a comic, as does the Deluxe Class Generations Hoist. I mean, this is he is Fall of Cybertron, but they didn't count him as Fall of Cybertron. They just call him Generations Thundercracker. But I'm going to call him Fall of Cybertron Thundercracker because you've seen him in the Cybertron game. He's actually in War for Cybertron. You don't actually see him or Skywarp in Fall of Cybertron that I'm aware of. I don't have either game, because I don't have the game systems that the games are available for. All I have is an old, outdated, needs to be replaced PlayStation 2 that I've had for almost 10 years now. I had an original PlayStation, the original PlayStation, for well over a decade before I finally got the PlayStation 2. Anyway, as you can see, Thundercracker is basically a blue and red-ish repaint of the Starscream mold. All of the Seekers are repaints of Starscream, even all the way back in 1984, 84, 85, whatever. The original Seeker toys were all repaints of Starscream. The only difference is 3 of them had different wings, different weapons, and instead of transforming the head or the nose cone back, folding it back, they were the cone heads where you actually left it up. Hence the name Conehead. But aside from that, all Seekers are pretty much repaints of Starscream. And the same is true for this guy. He is the first repaint of Starscream, the other one being Skywarp. Out of all of the Seekers, my favorite for a long time has been Thundercracker. All the way back since Armada. The reason being, in Armada, Starscream kept his name after he and a few of the other characters got repainted and basically stronger. I don't know why, how you get a different skin color and somehow you're like epically more powerful. Starscream went from somewhat of a Starscream-ish color scheme to a Thundercracker color scheme. The only time he mentions the name Thundercracker is saying, "I look like Thundercracker," because he had a blue paint scheme with red accents all over the place. He even had a red face, which I thought was really cool. But other than that, he still remained by the name of Starscream. But because of that, I have become a fan of Thundercracker. Because, not just because of the color scheme, but because of his character bio. Thundercracker is basically this character who is not really sure of the Decepticon cause. He's not sure of his place in the universe, why he's with the Decepticons, and I mean, it's literally to the point that he's questioning his place in the Decepticon ranks, to the point that he thinks he shouldn't be a Decepticon. I don't really read much of the old Transformers comics. The only comic of this guy I have is the one that came with him. And basically, from what I can gather, Thundercracker, in my mind, is almost considering switching sides. I'm thinking he may, at some point in Transformers lore, become an Autobot. In the comic that came with him, I'm not going to spoil much. The only thing I'm going to really spoil is he has a confrontation with Bumblebee in the story. Bumblebee talks. The motherfucker actually talks. Excuse my language. Instead of the kind of a sound that he's had for the last decade, almost. He has a confrontation with Bumblebee and another creature because they're on another planet. And instead of basically killing Bumblebee when he knew he could, he had the ability to kill him. He not only spares his life, but he spares the other creature's life because he noticed how Bumblebee was willing to lose his life to save another's life. Despite the fact that Thundercracker still considered both of them weak and pretty much not deserving of living. Thundercracker stepped back and said, wait a minute. I like that. He basically says, wait a minute. Why would this Autobot knowingly and willingly give his own life for someone else? Putting himself in the line of fire for a weakling, weaker than us. So Thundercracker basically puts his entire lifestyle into question. His entire mode of thinking into question. Everything. Basically into question. And that's what draws me to his character so much. That's why I like Thundercracker so much. Now, my good friend Diancis, he could probably give a whole much more story behind Thundercracker and his way of thinking, and basically his character in general. I'm actually challenging you, Diancis. If you see this, I challenge you to actually. I don't know if you still have any Thundercracker figures in your collection, because considering that you sold a lot of yours just so you could have some money to move to where you live now. But I actually challenge you to do just basically a character bio of Thundercracker from the beginning all the way to basically now, if you can. Because he's one of my favorite characters, and I want to know as much about Thundercracker as I can. And you obviously do a lot of research into your reviews. That's why your reviews are so popular, even today, after 6 years on YouTube. Your reviews are one of the most popular out there because you go into such depth into the character, not just this is the toy, this is how you transform it, this is the robot mode, his articulation, his weapons, etc., etc., etc. You go into the actual character, his thought process, his past, his present, his future, everything. Whether it's from the cartoon, from the comics, the many different continuities of comics, to, I don't know, video games, whatever. Even into the movies. The only sequel we've seen in the live-action movies was Starscream. We all know how much of a wuss that guy was. I mean, he was a prick. Anyway, rambling aside, as you can see, like I said earlier in the video, it's basically he's a blue repaint of Starscream with a very G1 style cockpit. It's very orangish. I mean, it's hard to pick up, but it's very orangish like the original toy from the 80s. I've seen pictures and I've seen reviews of the actual 80s toy. It's pretty much that color. It's really hard to tell from the light and from the camera. His accessories are these big guns that you store under his wings. When you play these guys in the game, you can actually play all three Seekers in the first game. This is pretty much the angle you constantly see from them. Naturally, in all video games, if it's a third-person view, you're going to see only the back of a character. You're not going to see the front of them unless you specifically rotate the camera around, if you have the option. But this is pretty much the profile that you get when you look at him in a game. He doesn't have these giant guns just sitting on the side there. All of his guns would be like up like close to this area right here. But I'm scratching my nose a lot here. It's itchy. Anyway, basically to transform this guy, you take the very tip of the nose cone and very gently, because it's on a very small hinge here, fold it all the way underneath where the cockpit sits. Basically just fold it in half. Next, you take these sections, which are going to basically be legs, unpeg them from the back section here. That frees them up where you can unfold all of that. Where it looks pretty much like this. Reach into here with your fingernails if you've got some, which I do. I need to retrim them at some point. Flip these little sections out and you've got his feet. His legs are pretty much now done. Here's his arms. Just reach in here and pull them out, where you open up this entire section here. Take his head, push it through, where it's at this section here. Rotate his head around where his face is looking down at the cockpit. Then take and accordion this entire section back, like this. Bring this section down, and then these two pieces, you accordion them up and into place. And then you see this little peg right here. It goes into this hole in here, which you can't really see because it's all dark and black in there. You can kind of see where it lines up and push it into place. Take these two sections here, push them forward where he looks more like that. Excuse me. Rotate his arms around, straighten out his fists. And you have Thundercracker in his robot mode. Try to get him to stand here. And like I said in my jazz review, I mentioned Thundercracker. He has amazing light piping. He literally looks like he's alive because his eyes are always shining. Of course, unless I turn off the light. His eyes are always glowing. I mean, it's creepy because he looks like he's just staring deep into your soul. Like he's just like reaching into your soul with his eyes and just grabbing your soul and just ripping it out through your eyes. I mean, it's so creepy. Again, let me just kind of get him standing here, setting him off to the side a little bit. These are his guns. They're triple-barreled machine guns that they both rotate. They have many functions, 2 functions. The one function that I actually neglected to show in his jet mode, which I'll actually quickly transform him back into his jet mode in a minute. You take these guns, you can either plug them onto his arms separately, which I'm going to show you, or you can combine them, and if you line the barrels up just right, which is kind of a pain sometimes, if you line the barrels up just right, they'll spin together in unison, and they'll always line up with one another. See? They always line up with one another. It's not hard to do, but it is sometimes a pain. Now, this gun, because it's kind of chopped off in half right here, I will peg into his right arm. That way it looks more natural. Do the same on his left arm. And there you go. He's got his guns on his arms. They're basically the Gatling gun version of the no-ray cannons that the Generation 1 figures had. But instead of being on the actual forearms, they were on the shoulders. The original no-ray cannons were on the shoulders, as opposed to on the forearms, as like they are now. Now I'm going to quickly transform him back into his jet mode to show you another feature that I actually did not know he had. And it actually involves the guns being combined together. So I'm just going to quickly transform this guy. Whoop, turn the head back around. Okay, just unpeg all of this, straighten all this out, put the head into place, fold the arms in on themselves, fold the arm in on itself, peg them together, get all that lined up, straighten out the wings, fold all this back, peg the legs into place. Come on. Oh. There we go. Now that it all lines up, let's fold out the nose cone. There he is back in his jet mode. Now to show off the feature, like I said, it requires his cannons being combined. And again, you want to line up the barrels where they always sync up together, like so. You can take the actual tail fin here. And again, this is a feature that I did not know that these had. I thank Optibotimus for this, because when he reviewed Thundercracker, he actually showed this off. You can take the tail fins here, these tail wings, you can pop them off, and you can see there's 3 pegs right here. The peg here in the bottom is for this right here. This hole, I'm sorry, is for this peg right here, solely for that. Other than that, that hole is pretty much useless. With your 2 guns, with Thundercracker's guns combined, Starscream and Skywarp will have this feature too. Excuse my French. With these guns combined, the pegs that are normally plugged into Thundercracker's forearms will now plug into these 2 holes right here. Just line it up and plug it into place, and there you go. Thundercracker's jet mode now has his guns basically on top. Why you would have the guns on top of the jet like that, I don't know. I mean, I can understand, like, maybe like a big like cargo plane. I can understand that, or a bomber, like a really big old World War II bomber, because they do have guns like that on the top, because they can't maneuver. But this guy, he can maneuver all over the place. And whoop, I just dropped his guns. And they actually split in half when they hit the ground. That's kind of that's never happened before. I've dropped them in the floor before, and they never split like that. That's the first time they've done that. But yeah, he looks kind of meh without his tails. So I'm gonna put his tail wings back into place, and there you go. He's back to his normal self. I'm not going to transform him back in this video, but yeah, that's pretty much all I've got to say. That's my review of the Fall of Cybertron / Generations Thundercracker. Later, guys.